Dan, here we go. What the heck happened, and how has this shook Minneapolis?
Oh man, I'm sitting by the Delta complaints counter here at MSP, and I halfway expect a bunch of Twins fans to line up and complain about the Pohlads. It's been a rough couple weeks. I mean, the trade deadline was shocking enough, right? But this sale was stagnant. Basically, after Justin Ishbia left, it just felt like there was momentum at times, but the thing it always lacked was big fish. You always need an anchor investor, like the guy with the big bucks. The Twins had a ton of interest from limited partners, and we saw that play out right here, where two groups investing at least 20% into the club were willing to buy it up without having a path to control, without having anything more than a seat on the board, and that's two seats on the board. We don't know how big the board is. We don't know how much voice they will actually have. That's a very unique, unusual deal. There was plenty of people like this that were interested, but I think after Justin Ishbia kind of left and abandoned his pursuit of the Twins in January when Jerry Reinsdorf's sons reached out, they really couldn't find someone that wanted to come in, and so this team sat on the market. And there's only so long that you can keep the house on an open market before the value starts to go down and bids get less. The MLB wasn't going to let that happen. I think that it sat there forever, and they had groups still spinning their wheels trying to put stuff together, and we wrote about that. That there were still investors meeting yesterday trying to figure out a way to get there, but and they were surprised, blindsided to see this sale happen the way it did, the partial sale. But I mean, that was the option's been there for 6 months. The price hasn't changed, and I think just at some point the Pohlads had to kind of pull the plug, and by doing this, they infuse much needed cash without giving up power. This probably positions them for a sale down the road, even though they say they're committed. And I didn't include that in the story today, but Joe Pohlad said we're committed. But it probably positions them after the next CBA for selling then, when franchise values might be higher. The fact that they will have half the debt or somewhere in that realm, a significant amount less with debt, it should increase the value of the Twins and position them well later. But I mean, Twins fans have been clamoring for this for probably decades, since the contraction bid in 2002. I mean, or 2001. The years are mixed up in my head here, but they've been clamoring for a sale for a long time. The last 10 months, we've seen just an overwhelming push for them to sell from fans, and I think they're very disappointed today. And I certainly would not want to be in the season ticket holder office talking to those guys.
Dan, it's only if we would have talked about this months and years ago. I mean, it was 2002, by the way, contraction, because I was on that team. They
Thank you.
Get rid of it. It was between 2001 and 2002. Us and the Expos,
Right.
They were talking about contracting, getting rid of the franchises for whatever reason they want to come up with, whatever. It was all BS. So here's the thing, Dan, about this. You just mentioned that the Pohlads didn't want to sell, and they wanted Joe Pohlad to be on the board, and they wanted grandson Pohlad to be on the next board, and then the great-grandson of that to be the president 25,000 years from now. I mean, there's all these stipulations, right? So they never really wanted to sell. That's what it comes across to me, unless they got blown out of the water. It wasn't happening. There's a possible work stoppage coming out. But what gets me about all this is we're the right people to run this team. Are you? Because I was there when Carl Pohlad, the grandfather, would walk in the clubhouse and not know who the players were. And I'd be standing in my locker, and he would go, "Oh, hi, Torrey Hunter." And I'm like, no, I'm not Torrey Hunter. Right? So, things like that, it was like, wait a second, that was 25 years ago. And we're still talking about it, right? So how can they come out and say we were the right team or the right people to right this ship? Right? You haven't righted it since 1991. Let's be honest, since 1991.
Right. No, look, I mean, just on recent examples alone, they're going to miss the playoffs for the fourth time in 5 years this season, and barring some miracle comeback that's not going to happen. They are on pace for 1.8 million tickets right now. It's going to be the lowest. I think it's currently on pace for 5,000 more tickets than the all-time target field low. They're going to miss that. People are going to not show up. They'll end up probably sub 1.8 million. They don't have they have not secured a market media deal, like significant deal. There's lots of things to point out right now to say this isn't going well. So when I heard that, I mean, yeah, of course, that's why it's in the headline. There's a little bit, I get they're excited. Joe Pohlad, this really gives him run as a shot, and it clearly was probably up in the air the last couple of years. I do think if they had gotten the right deal, they would have got out. I think that, it's a big family. It started with Carl Pohlad, but he had 3 sons. There are now 7 grandchildren, and then all of them have kids. And you're talking, a huge family. Not everybody has the same interests. One of the brothers is in the movie industry. Like, you have diverse interests when you have a big, rich family. I don't think everybody is totally on board. I think a handful definitely are. But there's been just this air of uncertainty. And I think had they gotten that big offer, they would have taken it, just because how do you pass that up? But it's been just awkward. And, like you said, the statement, the phrasing, this is the same group that said they wanted to right size the business last spring training after the $30 million pay cut. They make headlines from time to time that have not been flattering, to say the least, and frankly anger fans. And I can understand it. And, Joe Pohlad is a friendly dude. I enjoy my interactions with him. But this is 2 statements like that where it's like, those aren't the best statements, and they make headlines and they stick around for a while. And I think fans will definitely use that for a while, especially if the team isn't able to turn this around. Now, I mean, clearly they infused a lot of talent at the deadline, even though they salary dumped Carlos Correa. You look at their pitching, there's some really intriguing arms, along with still having a lot of starting pitching intact. We saw Joe Ryan last night. Bailey Ober maybe looks like he's getting back on the right track. Pablo Lopez is around the corner. Zebby Matthews looked pretty good Monday at Yankee Stadium. And then you have Taj Bradley, you have Mick Abel, and you have Kendry Rojas. I mean, you have some good starting pitching. Like, there's a world where you can see them maybe getting healthy quicker if some young guys develop. But if they don't, like, how long are people going to hold those kind of phrases over their heads?
Is this, well, I had another question, but just talking about what you're talking about, when they said we're the right people to right this ship, what does righting the ship look like? Or have they already started turning the rudder? Because history shows you they've had good pitching. History shows you they've had infusion of really good position players. Now they have Byron Buxton, who's healthy, and you think Royce Lewis is going to get better because he actually plays worse when he's playing all the time, and he plays better when he's hurt all the time. So, but you have that infusion. It's the same Twins team. What does the righting of the ship actually look like if that is true?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Look, the previous plan, the plug got pulled after the playoffs when they signed Carlos Correa. I want to say the day that Christian Vasquez signed was the day Correa was going to have his press conference with the San Francisco Giants. And I sat in Joe Pohlad's office that day with Dustin Morse, communications director, and we talked about what payroll could look like if the business was right. And Joe Pohlad said there was a world, and I used the quote, there's a world in which if the business is healthy and the team is ready, I could see us having a $180, $200 million payroll. I floated the numbers $180, $200 million, and he said I could see that being a reality. That was the plan then. They signed Carlos Correa. 3 weeks later, they had the record payroll that year was either $157 million or maybe $160. But then they pulled the plug on that a year later. They cut payroll by $30 million. They stopped adding around that group. So it's kind of incomplete. Like, you're seeing what is left of that now, which is not an athletic team. Luke Keyshaw has been a breath of fresh air because he is athletic. Royce Lewis is starting to show some of the signs of that again because he's looking healthy. Byron Buxton clearly is one of those guys. Now we're going to see them go in this younger, athletic direction. I wouldn't say they're going to go what the Rays are doing or the Milwaukee Brewers are doing, but I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they try to go in a new direction. It's confusing. If I was a fan, I'd be frustrated that July 31 was a dark day. I mean, I've struggled to find anyone that can tell me at any point where they've seen 10 players traded. And by the way, I apologize for my camera. This is not optimal, but this has been a really rough stretch, and what getting right looks like, I don't know. I think that's why fans wanted a fresh perspective coming in, a clean break, and clearly we're not getting that, and you have to wonder what the future holds.
Hey, we love ripping slab packs on Arena Club. I just ripped one in a Ruby pack. Those are fancy schmancy, Kip. And I pulled a Matt Shaw 2023 Bowman Draft Aqua Lunar Crater Refractor card. And guess what? Guess what? I got a little offer. You get the instant offer right away. Okay. So they're offering me $121 to sell it back, and then I can get a new slab pack. What do I do?
I want to see this thing. Hold on. Look at that. That's a beautiful card. You know what? I think that's a safe bet. I think it's going to make you a little bit of money. I think the more big league time he gets, I'd almost take the deal, though. I'm in it for the chase. I like opening more packs. I think that 121 can buy you a couple more slabs to open. And I think you keep chasing until you get someone you really like. But that's the best part about it for me.
That's right. You can sell it back, $121, and then open up another slab pack. Use the code FAL to receive 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/FAL.
Falvey came out and said he was directed by ownership to trade everybody, but now the ownership's saying we didn't say that. So who wanted to fire sale? You brought it up. They traded, almost half their team away in like 4 hours. So who was it on? Was this a Falvey decision? Was this a Pohlad decision? Or was it the fans are going to be mad at me, so we'll just do it anyways decision?
I think Correa was definitely something from an ownership level. The impending free agents, that was a given. We were going to see them get traded anyways. The way they've described it is, and I asked Joe Pohlad specifically about the deadline yesterday. He said, I thought it was good baseball decisions for the long-term, short-term and long-term health of our franchise. So I know they plan on using I don't know how they will use it, because he phrased it, if we choose to do so. But he talked about the financial flexibility. I don't know that the payroll is going to go up much from where it is right now. And next year, it wouldn't shock me if we saw them around $100 million. But I mean, honestly, those aren't decisions that are made until October, November anyways. But it's going to depend on season ticket base and what that looks like. And I can't see the season ticket holders sticking around right now. It's going to be interesting to see what that fallout looks like. But I would say it was directed from ownership level, even if they're saying no. Look, they were motivated to move Carlos Correa's money, absolutely. The way to, I think, partly you can say it's Derek Falvey as far as knowing what direction they're heading and knowing that they needed a talent infusion. One way to do that is sell off a good bullpen. And so I think that's why we saw Louis Varland get traded, Griffin Jacks get traded, was, hey, we can bring in this younger talent that's, high upside and very attractive. Even though Louis Varland himself had very little service time, they really love the guy that got Kenry Rojas. They love Alan Roden. They think Alan Roden, and I've heard a lot of people say, man, his performance has been so consistent across the minors. I think he had 165 walks, 165 strikeouts, and 1,300 minor league plate appearances. They want to see what he can do at the major league level. They were blown away by that offer and decided to make that. So it wouldn't shock me if it was a little both, but I would not. I think ownership's fingerprints are all over the whole scheme in general.
Can you confirm this? Maybe I got trolled on a story I read. Did the Twins up season ticket prices for next year right before the trade deadline, or did I not read that correctly?
You know what? I don't. There's been too much going on. I don't know. I'll look into that and get back to you guys, but the last 3 weeks is a blur. It's just a blur.
Kratzy, I'll tell you what happened. I was told that they're going to up at 5%. So I could be wrong. I could be trolled. I could be been given bad information, Dan. I don't know. It was something that I was told from people not in the organization that I know outside the organization that said there was a rumor, and they think it's fact that the ticket prices are going to go up 5% next year. And so and this was right after the trade deadline when they were going to send out the season ticket list.
I mean, I've seen people online today just kind of grandstanding, showing that they're canceling their accounts. I've heard from one person that it's a busy day in there and not the fun kind of busy day. So it's going to be very interesting. And you know what? Rarely, from my perspective, do you cover a team from a the business side of things, but clearly that's something that we have to keep an eye on. I mean, this is a team that just went to MLB run Twins TV this year. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty going forward, and you know, where ticket sales are going to be next year is going to be really interesting. Now, the one thing that's true is winning does cure all. And if you put Luke Keyshaw and Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton and that starting staff together and get a little bit of help here or there, because they do have financial flexibility, if they do piece it together, maybe they are an interesting club. But there's just more pressure on that team to win right now to get the business side going again.
Yeah, otherwise they're taking the franchise. This is a page out of the John Fisher book of how to move, but they're not moving, and they want to move the team.
Why would you?
This is such a mess.
It is, and why? You know, that's the one part is why would you want to move from Target Field? Target Field is a spectacular ballpark. I know that April sucks in the weather there. If we ever see what a late October looks like, that's going to be very interesting. But they have a long lease at Target Field that they're. It's the same reason contraction didn't happen. There was a lease at the Metrodome. The judge ruled that you can't get out of your lease. This cannot happen. And that shut down contraction talks real quick. Twins have like 12, 15 years left on their lease at Target Field. They're not going anywhere. So, you know, it really is. It's just a really interesting 10 months. Last 3 weeks, it's insane.
Yeah, they could not care less. They have tried to move the team, contract the team, now fake sell the team for really over $2.1 billion if you include the debt. And everyone was like, that's
Right.
crazy. Someone offered like 1.5 and they hung up the phone. Like, this is just an utter disaster. But at least, and I'll end this the way that we started this, at least this is the right person to take them through the storm. Declared by, I don't know, the high heavens. Somebody declared it. No one knows who it is, but someone declared that Joe Pohlad is going to lead this franchise to glory and to victory. And if he does, obviously he's going to sell it. So we know where they'll be voting, and they'll be trying to lock out the world. That's why this is a baseball problem. They're going to try and lock out the players and the fans from watching baseball next year, because it would raise the franchise value if they can suppress salaries. It's that simple. Someone can come on and tell me otherwise. There is no doubt that's where they'll be voting behind the scenes.